Greetings, everyone, and welcome to this latest installation of the Senturus Knowledge Series. Today, we're pleased to be presenting to you on the topic of Tableau Prep, a visualization's best friend forever. And we'll give you an overview of self-service data prep, of the self-service data prep tool for Tableau. Our agenda today, we'll go through some brief introductions of our presenter. Then we'll cover a Tableau Prep overview. We'll do a quick Centris overview for those of you who may not be familiar with us. We'll give you some great additional free resources, and please make sure you stick around to the end for the aforementioned Q&A. Specifically, on the next slide with regard to the Tableau Prep overview, we're going to cover the components of Tableau Prep. We will discuss the why you need Tableau Prep, why you might use it. We'll demo some of Tableau Prep's capabilities. And lastly, we'll talk about some of the cool features that are coming down the road, as well as licensing requirements for each component. I'm pleased to be joined today by Mr. Patrick Powers, data scientist, consultant, and trainer at Centris. He has over 20 years of experience in data science, business intelligence, and data analytics. He is also a Tableau certified associate and a Cognos expert whose product experience goes back to version 6. He is also versed in Actuate, Hyperion, and business objects. His certifications include multiple programming languages, including Java and C++, and database certification in MS SQL. My name is Mike Weinhauer. I wear many hats around here at Centurus, one of them being the pleasure of hosting these webinars, and I'm happy to be here with you today. So we always like to get a finger on the pulse of our audience, and so we have some polls. I got 2 of them for you here today, and the first one is, how do you currently prepare your data? So if you'd like to interact with us and let us know, do you use Tableau Prep currently? Do you do your data preparation strictly in Tableau Desktop using the data source tab? Do you use a third-party ETL tool like Alteryx, for example, or Talend or something like that? Or is it done at the back end using Excel or database views or something different? All right, I'm gonna close this one out and share the results back with y'all. So it looks like half of you do it at the back end, and about a quarter of you use Tableau Desktop. Only 5% using Tableau Prep. I'm a little surprised at that number. And then about 20% of you using a third-party ETL tool. So that's an interesting result. I don't know that I would have predicted that. Then our second poll are, what are your data challenges? Are they, and you can select all that apply here. This isn't a single choice one. Is the data in the wrong format? Does your data come from multiple sources? Do you have to combine it? Do you find your data is at different levels of grain? Is your data not analysis friendly, or does it take too long for you to make visualizations? All right, we'll close that out and share it. And so the biggest issue is data coming from multiple sources. Not too surprising there, given the myriad data sources we find in our clients' environments. Close to 60%, and data's not analysis friendly. And then about half of you sitting around and the data's in the wrong format and different levels of grain. And then about a 30, it looks like it takes too long to make vises. So thank you for sharing your insights there. Always appreciate that. I'm gonna hide that and we'll move on to the next slide in our deck here, where we talk about the components of Tableau Prep. So today we're focusing on Tableau Prep Builder, which is a self-service client-based ETL, which stands for extract, transform, and load tool used to prepare data within the Tableau environment. With Tableau Prep, you create flows of repeatable and documented steps. Those flows can then be scheduled to run on intervals using Tableau Server or Tableau Online using Tableau Prep Conductor. So think of Tableau Prep Builder as the desktop tool where you instantiate and create flows and do all the things that Patrick's going to talk about and show you. And then Tableau Prep Conductor is the server-based option where you can publish those flows and manage and schedule them via Tableau Server. And with that, I'm going to hand the floor over to Patrick, who's going to take you through the rest of the presentation. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mike. And I did notice there was a question that came in there. Some of you were unable to vote, it looks like, because the browser interface didn't allow for it. But that's okay. We got some good information regardless. And I think that anybody else voting would have pretty much fallen into one of the buckets that we already saw. As all of you just responded, we need to prep data, and we need to talk about why do you need to prep data. The easiest way to think about it is exactly what you see here. Meals just don't magically happen, do they? It'd be nice if they did, but even if you're at home or eating out, somebody's in back there making that meal. They're prepping the ingredients. Somebody is slicing and dicing, adding some seasoning, assembling the ingredients. It doesn't happen magically, unfortunately. The result is our beautiful, fully cooked meal. I know it's near lunchtime for a lot of you, so don't leave on me and get hungry now that I've shown you food. But this is like a Tableau dashboard. It doesn't just happen. That beautiful, wonderful dashboard with actions and blending and all those other great things didn't just happen magically. 90% of the work had to do with somebody preparing the underlying data. And these days, data is everywhere. And many of you know that you can create a quick Tableau dashboard with just about anything. Any Excel file, any CSV, any database connection, we can have a meal. But is it going to be a good meal? Is it going to be an accurate, informational, and up-to-date set of data? These are the important things. We don't know if we have enough. We don't know if we have good data versus bad data these days because there's so much data coming at us. There's a lot of noise we have to filter through. And this starts getting into the difference between good data and bad data. And good data is an absolute requirement to making accurate projections, which in turn allows us to make better decisions. And these days, we see more and more how important that good data really is. But that, of course, begs the question, what is good data and what is bad data? Sometimes we don't know. Sometimes we don't see it until we expose it in one of our tools like Tableau Desktop. There's some common issues. Again, some of you said one of these already. But we have things like data in the wrong format. We've got data going across different months at different granular levels, and we don't know. We have to aggregate these things together. We need to do unions on data. The bigger one, coming from multiple sources. HR data is in one system, expense data is in another, and then sitting on somebody's desktop is your budget and forecast data. And all that's got to be added to your transactional data, and all that's got to come out magically on a dashboard. But then we get into granularity. That budget data, well, that's done at the quarterly level. And your inventory, well, that's at the monthly level. And sales, well, sales are at the daily level. How do we put all these together? Again, doesn't happen automatically for us. Then we've got some things that are a little less obvious, things that sometimes aren't as important to the technical folks, but definitely are important to our business users. Data needs to be analysis friendly. If it's coming from a transactional system, we've all seen those fields, AR32X underscore $F4, which of course, as we all know, is customer number. So how do we do that? How do we make it friendly for our users? This is the kind of thing we'll do in a data prep. Then there's the outliers and mistakes. When we have data that's going back years and years and years, and when we've had 10 different people building 10 different ETL jobs and 10 different data sources, it's very easy to have things like CA versus California versus C.A. And how do you aggregate that? How do you put all that together? Regardless of the tool, this is all data prep. This is all the types of things that have to happen before a business user, before a report author, before a dashboard maker can really put out usable, accurate information. Okay, if there's so many choices, what are they? Well, a lot of you just said you use Tableau Desktop, and that's great. But Tableau Desktop is not quite fully preparation. It allows us to change data types, and we can do some pivoting and blending and unions, but there's a cost to that. If someone's using Tableau Desktop and they're not publishing out their TDS, they're not sending their data source, they're not uploading it to the server, then those changes are happening sometimes for one user. They're not happening across the enterprise, especially if we're doing calculated fields. We've got calculations being done in the desktop tool where they should really be happening upstream. And that leads to consistency issues. Every single one of you can probably relate to the fact that if you were to ask 10 different people, what's the formula for variance, you're going to get 10 different answers. One group needs it this way, another group needs it this way. How do we make sure things are consistent? That's the kind of stuff that needs to be done upstream or on the back end. And there are great tools out there. There's wonderful third-party ETL tools that have more features than Tableau Prep, Alteryx, Informatica. But are you going to give those kinds of tools to your end user Tableau Desktop analyst? These are complex technical tools. They're expensive to license a lot of times. They require enterprise installation. They require being controlled and managed by an IT staff. That's a lot of overhead. Okay, well, what if we do it in the database? Well, of course, you can get your DBAs because your DBAs don't have anything else to do, right? They can just go ahead and start making views and do extracts and everything else. We'll just add it to the queue. And then what happens when there's a new requirement? And that new requirement has to be in the dashboard for a presentation in, I don't know, 3 hours. It can be hard to rely on those kind of forces outside your immediate need. You've got business processes. You've got things that have to happen to get them in there. And that brings us to Tableau Prep. Tableau Prep, excuse me, Tableau Prep, because of some of these other limitations, can always be a good choice for many different things. First off, let's start with the fact that it's free if you've got a Tableau Creator license. That right there makes at least one of you happy. It is free. It's also a graphical tool. Most of our analysts aren't going to sit down and write SQL. They're not going to know how to write the code out to take care of writing their own extracts. Tableau Prep gives us a graphical way to do it. And it's integrated with a tool they're already familiar with. It's integrated with the desktop tool. And you're going to see that. I'm going to show you that as we get into the demos, that at any point as I'm building a flow, I can say, I wonder how this is going to look, and I can bring it right into a tool that I already know, that I already have, and it's right there. Because of all these things, because I can publish to my Tableau server, this allows us to have documented and repeatable information, right? We can use these things over and over again. And that's a big deal, right? We want to be able to use this more than once. We've got the ability to preview our data. So whether we preview it inside of Tableau Desktop or we preview it as a straight CSV file, we've got ways to preview it. And we can see what gets included or excluded with things like joins, unions, etc. Over here on the right, you see a sample of some of these types of steps, whether it's cleansing by removing nulls, fixing data types, renaming, correcting date formats. Those are all the types of things we can do. And now that you're tired of listening to me talk and you actually want to see something, what do you say we do a nice demo and I introduce you to Tableau Prep? For this demo, I'm going to use some sample data that is provided by Tableau. We're going to be looking at some best-selling book data, and we're going to see things like unions and how to bring data together and just get a nice feel for the product. So here I've started up my local copy. Just for those of you who may be curious, I'm on 2020.1.5. That is the most recent version, very recent, as a matter of fact. And this has addressed, if any of you have had problems with Tableau Prep, this does address some of the bugs that were out there as far as using unions with CSV. So I'm prepping that question before it ends up in the questions. So I'm going to go ahead and I am going to connect to data, just like we see in Tableau Desktop. So there are questions out there. Can Tableau Prep connect to Tableau Server? And you see here that yes, it can publish to server, but it also connects to just about any other server type as well. But we absolutely can connect to a Tableau server. Okay. For this purpose, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to use Excel because I'm boring and I'm old and it's easy. And I'm going to go to book data and I'm going to use this file from 228.18. Tableau Prep has read my source. It's brought in all of the sheets. Now, whether it's a database or whether it is Excel, it does refer to them as tables. So it just calls everything tables. For every flow that we create, the very first step is going to be an input step. For that input step, I'm going to bring over mass market. And here in my interface, it gives me the fields. It gives me an original field name if it's changed, and it shows me sample values. So I get to see that right out of the gate here the minute I bring that over. Okay. What about these other 6 sheets? Well, in this particular case, they all have the same information. They're all type, field name, sample, etc., rank info. They all have the same thing. So we're going to do a union, and we're going to do a wildcard union. This is really nice because this allows me, if the data changes, it's easy enough for me to include everything that's in that Excel file. I just tell it to use a wildcard pattern, and I say, hey, include all sheets, same thing, a wildcard pattern, and I hit apply. It has added 2 additional fields. It's added the table name, or in this case, the sheet name, and it's added the path. So this is the path from where it came from. These are the different sheet names. Okay. Now that we've done our union, mass market doesn't work as a name anymore. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to right click that, and I'm going to rename the step. And I'm going to rename it to Feb 28. A little more descriptive there. Okay, I could stop right here. I could take this and I could make an output, and I would at least have a unioned set of data to work from. So that's great, but we need to clean it. Again, these are the types of steps I can add, and I'm going to add a clean step. Here I see more information on my data. Some of it is being shown in a distribution value. I've got string values, and then I've got the data itself down below. You can see that down below there. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to clean this up. One thing to mention, you can use this pane, this info pane, not just for looking at samples, but it's actually really good for doing analysis too. If you wonder, hey, what's my distribution of mass market? Well, mass market is making up 10% of your rows. Trade paperback fiction is making up 15% of my rows. So I can use this for information and for analysis purposes as well. Okay. All right, let's take a look down here, what's going on. We've got an info pane. I'm going to make this card a little wider so everybody can see it. In the info pane, I see that I've got actually 4 pieces of information: the title, the author, the price, and the ISBN. In order to actually use that in my other tools, I'm going to want to split that apart. When I click on it, notice that the bar above has changed. This is dynamic. It will change based on the type of card I've got selected. Different things that I can do with this one. We're going to do a split. If you look at this, you may think, oh no, I've got to do a manual split because I've got pipe symbols. Nope. In this case, it sees the $ as a delimiter as well. So I can do an automatic split for this. Look at that. I've got my 4 fields, each one clean, each one split out. It gives it a name that's oh so exciting. So we do need to take a moment and rename these. And I'm going to call them title, author, price, and ISBN. Now I've got 4 clean fields, which means that in my clean step, I can get rid of this info pane. I no longer need this field. No, that does not change my source data. I'm not doing anything destructive. That's a big thing to remember. People get concerned and worry that, hey, I don't want to trust this to somebody who's non-technical and they're going to start messing things up. Not a problem. And it's absolutely not a dumb question that just came through. You can use a regular expression. You can use it in a calculated field. So I could create a calculated field here and I could use regex if I wanted to. Instead of doing the automatic split, I could have created a calculated field against info, just like I would have done in Tableau or in Tableau Desktop or any other type of programming language. Okay. So yes, I am watching the questions at the same time, gang. If I miss one, it's not intentional. One thing we do see, because our original field was a string, it did create 4 string splits. We want to change the data type for price. Price is not obviously a string, and we can change that to a number decimal. Notice that when I change it to a number, it changes my view to distribution. So I could see that, hey, $0 to $10 is 14%, 10 to 20, 53%, etc. If I want to see the individual values, not a problem. I can change that right there. And now I'm back to individual values and I see their distribution as well. All right, we've got one file, we've got it clean, but as most of you stated, I've got data from different sources. Let's add some more data. So I'm going to add a second Excel file, and I'm going to add the best sellers from the week before. The table names in this case are exactly the same. That won't always be the case, obviously, but in this case, they're exactly the same. So I need to make sure I am on the right one. It's very easy to pick the wrong one in this case. Once again, I'm going to start with an input step, mass market. Notice that it made it a different color. It does cycle through different colors. I could, to Catherine, to answer your question there, I could split out last week and weeks on list just like I did the last one, because I do have that common delimiter there. So whether I did it automatically or I did it manually, it would be very easy to clean that in that same step and split that as well. And I could create 2 fields, last week, number of weeks on list. Okay. So that too could be handled right there in my clean step. Okay. You're right, that only works when there's partials and things like that. And I may have to do more of a calculated field or something more advanced like was asked a moment ago, but I could still split this out. Again, I may need to do it more calculated and more technical than other things. Let's do the same thing we did with the last one. Let's do a wildcard union. I'm going to apply that. And I'm going to rename this one to Feb 21. Okay. We have two sets of data. We want to bring them together. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do a union. So I'm going to take Feb 21 and I'm going to drag it right on top of my Feb 28. Notice I have two options, union or join. In this case, because they're identical, I can do a union. And that automatically creates my union step. Okay. I can see down in the info pane, here's what was brought in. Hey, here's any fields that didn't match. Okay. And here's everything that I've got going on. At this point, if I wanted to, I could preview this in Tableau Desktop. I could add an output step right here. So at any point in my flow, I can create an extract. So I can create an extract at any stage. I can create an output step, or I could preview it in Tableau Desktop. So I can see that metadata at any stage. Okay. Well, hey, I don't want this clean step going to waste. So I'm going to remove this step from Feb 28. And instead, I'm going to add the union to my clean step. So now I have three choices, add, union, or join. I'm going to add it. Now I'm doing my two inputs, having them unioned, and I've got them both going through my clean step. Okay. At this point, again, if I want to see how this looks, I could preview it in Tableau Desktop. Okay. It's going to open up here. And here I've got my sample. I can see what's going on. I can see if life is good. Okay. I can see what I might want to clean up or continue to add or take away. And I've got it right here. And I could go ahead and I could extract this. I could save it from here. But what we really want to do is we want to create an output so that we can use this. Absolutely. This is my clean step. And in my clean step, I've split out info. I split it out into 4 fields. And it's now doing that to both Feb 28 and Feb 21. So this is the clean step right here. If I want to see what I needed to do, it shows me what was applied to this. So I don't need to split the info field here because it's happening here at this clean step. And we see the actual calculated field that it's creating. I see my renames, I see my change, and notice that I could edit any of those steps. Brings up my standard calculation editor. I can see exactly what was happening. And if I say, you know what, I don't like this step, I can delete it or I can undo it. So I've got some options here. Okay. I've got some options. And you'll notice that as I step through, this changes. So up here, still says info split, but when I get all the way down here, I see that it's applied all of my changes. This is a flow as well. Okay. So now that I'm good with both of my sources, I'm going to add my output step. My output step gives me some different options. I can save it to a file, okay, or I can publish it as a data source. Now, there's a question on the clean step. Let me go back one. This doesn't know automatically what to do. It doesn't know the difference between clean or unclean. That's up to us to decide. These changes were our choice. It didn't automatically do anything, just to make sure that's clear. So here on my output step, I can save to a file, or I could publish it to my Tableau data server. Okay. We're going to save to a file. Something that's come up from a lot of folks who've taken the class already, taken our Tableau Prep class. Hey, I can't change the name. That's right. You actually have to click Browse. And when you click Browse, then you can change the name. And that'll get reflected here in the name field. Okay. We also can specify the location and the most important one, the output type. Do we want it to go as a .hyper, a .tde, or a .csv? Hyper is obviously anything from 10.5 or later. TDE gives us the flexibility of using it in any version of Tableau Desktop. But CSV gives us the most flexibility. Not only can I use it in Tableau Desktop, but if I needed to send this off to somebody else, if I needed to use it in another application, I've got that available to me. The final piece of the puzzle, I need to run the flow. That will actually create my output file. There's a run flow button down the bottom here. There's also a little run icon up here in my diagram, in my flow diagram. They do the exact same thing. So whether I click here or I click here, there it is. Now I've got a CSV file. I can go ahead, now I can save these steps. I can save it to a file, which would document all of my different things, or I could publish this to a server so that if you had the Tableau Prep connector, you could schedule it, you could set it up, you could automate it so this runs on a regular basis. Now in this directory, wherever the heck I put it, I've got a CSV file. My Tableau Prep repository, data sources. There's my best sellers. And there it is all ready to go. So that's an introduction to it. I'd like to show you one more demo. We've got some time here. I want to show you one more demo. Something that comes up for a lot of people is that your data isn't always nice and perfect and clean, especially if it's coming from Excel. A lot of times data needs to be pivoted. So I want to do a pivot step. And I'm going to show you. Here we've got our good old sample superstore. But this is a sample superstore that's been deconstructed, if you will, to keep our meal analogy going. Okay? You can create a schedule if you have the Tableau Prep connector. So that's something you gotta also have the connector. This is Builder, the desktop. Connector is your server piece. Here we see our products, and our products have actually been split off into separate sheets. Okay? So I'm going to bring over office supplies, and I see that I have a column called office supplies. Well, if I want to union that to my technology or to my furniture, I need to turn this into something else. For those of you familiar with Sample Superstore, this would be our category field. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to add a pivot step. And here I can pivot on that office supplies column, which creates a pivot one name and a pivot one value. We're going to change this to category. We're going to change this to product name. So I've pivoted my data. Sometimes I'm not going to have it so easy. Let's take a look at technology phones. Here I've got two instances that have to be pivoted, technology and phones. Not a problem. I can do a multi-pivot. I can do a pivot group that lets me pivot two different things. So first we'll pivot on technology. That gives us our first one. Then I can also pivot on this second one, phones. Okay. And I can turn around and I can create a calculated field off of this. So here's my pivot to values. When I select that, I have the option of creating a calculated field. And I'm just going to do a very simple field here. I'm going to call it subcategory to line up to my other one. And this is nothing fancy. I'm doing a straight if. I only have a single value in there, so I'm just going to make it a very simple subcategory phones. And then I would probably add a clean step to get rid of some of these additional columns, some of these additional names. But now I've got subcategory, I've got category, and I've got product name. With that, I can do a union. And I can take all of these and I can bring them into a union. So if I take my pivot 2 to pivot 1, there's my union. Right? Got my office supplies, I've got technology, I've got product, and I've got my subcategories, including phones. So again, I can do an output step. And I have an output step of products. Of course, I would take this and I would join it to the rest to create your standard sample superstore, which is what we do in our class. We break all these apart just to put them all back together. Okay? And again, I could preview this in desktop if I wanted to see how it looks. Generated 6,000 rows for me. There's my category. There's my subcategory. Of course, we see that we've got things that still need cleansing. We don't have any of our facts in here yet, but we were able to pivot these into a single file that lets us see the data in a way the analyst needs to go ahead and actually do some work on it. Okay. So that's my demo for the day here. Before I switch it back to Mike, I want to talk about some of the things that we've seen, things that are coming, hopefully given the world situation, that are coming soon. We've been a beta tester for both Tableau Desktop and Tableau Prep since very early on, even back when this was called Project Maestro. We also do a lot of ETL work for our clients, and we know that this isn't a one-size-fits-all. And given that we are beta testers, we're able to see what's coming and how close it is coming to being a more full-blown ETL type of solution. Okay. In the next release, which is projected for summer, all things being relative, first is an incremental data refresh. If you have data that grows and you don't want to run the flow for all the data, you can run it for new data. This is in the 2020.2 beta, where you can specify a field and only run the flow for that new data for that field. Second big thing is the Salesforce data connector. Now that Tableau is part of the Salesforce family, it's no surprise that it's going to provide a direct connection. Okay. You still need to know how the data and the Salesforce tables connect to each other. Obviously, you need to know how opportunity and account work. You got to be careful not to get the wrong data, but it's one step closer to being a full solution for folks who are Salesforce folks. Okay. At the conference last November, there were some additional things. There's no date set on these. Because Salesforce and things like that are all web-based, it's no surprise that we'll see a web-based version of Tableau Prep at some point. We'll probably expect to see that in a major release in 2021, 2022. All depends on how things are going. The other thing that was not given a date, but was announced, was the ability to write to a database. It's great to build extracts in CSV, but what do you want to do when you want to write it back to a database source as a view? That will be coming at some point. This makes it more like an Alteryx or another type of product that allows you to build new tables. This is better management. We don't have CSV files or extracts floating around. It's all going back to a centralized database and a centralized data source. I hope we see that one sooner rather than later, but I would say that's probably also another major release point, probably looking 2021 or later. But these are exciting new things coming. It's come a long way since its first introduction years and years ago, it feels like now. It's really turned into a great product that people can use of all skill sets, and it's doing some wonderful things for everybody. That's all I have. I want to switch it back to Mike. Mike, you can talk about some of the licensing requirements and other stuff.
Thanks, Patrick. Yeah, and we did see everyone, please stick around and get your questions into the question panel. We have some good ones there, even though Patrick's been kind enough to answer a lot of those in line. But several of them were about the licensing requirement and whether Tableau Prep is offered as a standalone. And the answer is that Prep is not available as a standalone product. It comes as part of the Tableau Creator license. So since 2018, Tableau Licensing has been bucketed into three broad areas: creating, exploring, and viewing. And again, Tableau Creator is the person who can create data sources. So they use Tableau Desktop, and it's bundled with Tableau Prep as well as a server license. And you can use Tableau Desktop or Tableau Prep to create data sources, aka metadata, for Tableau. The screenshot at the bottom there shows you Tableau Conductor, which comes with the data management add-on, which is currently priced at $5.50 per user per month. And without the add-on, the prep flows need to be manually run. So those of you who are asking, I knew there were some questions in the pane about connecting to Tableau server. So you can connect to Tableau as a data source in prep, as Patrick pointed out. And then the other sort of, I would say, connection point to Tableau server is the ability to publish flows from desktop, much like you'd publish a data source or a workbook from Tableau Desktop. And then you can manage that and run that and schedule it through Tableau server. So if you need more information about that, we do have a great blog that's listed at the bottom of that slide. And we are a Tableau, Centris is a Tableau reseller. So we can, as well as a services provider and a technology partner, we can help you with all that if you have questions about it or need help with your Tableau licensing. On the next slide, we're pleased to announce that we have a new Tableau Prep class. That'll be an instructor led online, I believe led by the author of the class and our presenter today, Mr. Patrick Powers. So if you want to hear more of his dulcet voice and wise musings, please join us for that. And that we're pleased to add that class to our comprehensive lineup of Tableau classes, from everything from fundamentals all the way up to expert. And we have another fabulous new class called Complex Aggregations that focuses on table calculations and level of detail calculations, all taught by our world-class instructors. So please visit us at the link below there to check out that class and others. Again, get those questions into the question pane, and we'll get to those in just a few more slides. Quick few slides about Centurus. We are the authority in business intelligence. All we do all day, every day is business intelligence with a depth of knowledge across the entire BI stack, whether that's planning, design, implementation of data sources, data lakes, creation of BI content, upgrades, migrations, performance optimization and tuning, through training and project management. On the next slide, our clients know us for providing clarity from the chaos of complex business requirements, disparate data sources, and constantly moving targets. We've made a name for ourselves based on our strength at bridging the gap between IT and business users. We deliver solutions that give you access to reliable, analysis-ready data across the organization, so you can quickly and easily get answers at the point of impact in the form of the decisions you make and the actions you take. Our consultants are leading experts in the field of analytics with years of pragmatic real-world expertise and experience advancing the state of the art. You can see some of the broad areas that we support there. We are so confident in our team and methodology that we back our projects with a 100% money back guarantee that is unique in the industry. And then lastly, we've been doing this for a while, coming up on 2 decades. We've been focused exclusively on business intelligence. We work across the spectrum from everything from Fortune 500 to the mid-market. You'll almost certainly recognize many of those nameplates there, solving business problems across different industries and functional areas ranging from the Office of Finance to sales and marketing, manufacturing, operations, HR, and IT. Our team here at Senturus is both large enough to meet your business objectives and yet small enough to provide personalized attention. A couple of great free assets here that you should take a look at and potentially bookmark. We have hundreds of free resources on our website, ranging from webinars such as this one on all things BI to our fabulous up-to-the-minute, easily consumable blogs. And we've got on the next slide a couple of great upcoming events you should definitely take a look at. First one being Power BI role level security. That's going to be Thursday, May 21st. All of our webinars pretty much fall on Thursdays between 11 and 12 Pacific. We have another one the week after that on accelerating BI migrations. I'll be running that one, talking about some of our migration technologies. And then the last one that we have on the in the near term is Cognos Framework Manager versus data modules. So we're doing a really fascinating comparison of those two technologies. So go ahead to events and sign up for that. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our complete BI training. We provide training in the top 3 major BI platforms, IBM, Cognos Analytics, Power BI, and Tableau. We're ideal for organizations, especially running multiples of those platforms or those moving from one to the other based upon the breadth and depth of knowledge that our trainers have in multiple platforms. We offer tailored group sessions, one-to-one or one-to-few mentoring, instructor-led online courses, as well as self-paced e-learning. So we can provide those trainings in many modes and can mix and match to suit your business needs. And lastly, some additional resources here. We provide hundreds of free resources on our website, and we've been committed to sharing our BI expertise for over a decade. For more on this topic, we've got some great links in the deck here. Again, you'll find this up on Senturus.com, where you can find information about Tableau licensing and some other great topics there. And then that brings us to the Q&A. So can go ahead and continue to get your questions in there. Patrick, I don't know if you got a chance to kind of look through those, and you did answer a lot of them sort of in line. There's one that I noticed here where a gentleman asked about modularizing some of the steps in a flow so they can be reused. Do you have any comments on that one?
Well, any step can be saved and documented along the way, so you can reuse it. If you have the conductor piece, the connector piece, that's where you're going to be able to really save these things, is you're going to publish them up to your Tableau server, use the connector. One question, Mike, that you might want to be able to answer was on the Centurus Analytics connector.
Oh yeah, I see that. I didn't get a chance to read that. That came up when we were when I was doing my slides here. So you have Cognos and many governed data sources, cubes, framework packages, dynamic cubes. Can you explain what data sources the Centurus Analytics connector will allow us to connect to? Well, thanks, Trevor. We do offer a product that he mentions here called the Centurus Analytics Connector, and that is a tool that specifically allows Tableau and or Power BI users to access Cognos data sources and metadata, so framework manager packages and or data modules and or reports through those tools. So you get reuse of all that great metadata and data assets that you have in Cognos, with where you've got security modeled and all that sort of stuff. It just gets passed through. The data sources that you can use that Cognos accesses, so you mentioned PowerPlay cubes, framework packages, dynamic cubes, those are all supported sources. So we support relational sources, PowerPlay cubes, dynamic cubes, dimensionally modeled relational, as well as TM1. The only ones we really don't support are things like Hyperion and SSAS cubes. So if you're interested in that, it's a great, if you're familiar with the Gartner term bimodal BI, where you have kind of a coexistence strategy, if you will, between tools like Cognos and or Tableau and or Power BI, the connector might be a good solution for you to leverage all that great metadata.
One more I'll take care of real quick here is from Sonia on adding more data to an Excel sheet. So yes, if you don't have the connector piece, you would have to rerun the flow when the new data comes in. But that's the big advantage of having the connector connected up with your server, is that you can schedule these flows so you wouldn't need to worry about republishing. It all becomes automatic. If Excel updates, if the file updates, if your database updates, that all happens automatically as part of the connector tool. The standalone prep builder, standalone from connector, there I would have to actually rerun the flow to get the new data into my output file. And I think, Mike, we actually got almost all the questions.
Yeah, it looks like it. I saw the one question about how do we document the actions in the clean steps. And I know you talked about, the Tab Prep does a great job in that when you click on the step there, right, you can see what all the different steps were. In terms of, there you go. So you can output that, save that to a file.
Exactly.
So there is some capability there.
So I could publish this out. I can even change the color if I really wanted to, but I could save this out to a file and have all those steps. And again, we see the steps whenever we've got one. Let me switch to the other one. I can see right here exactly what happened. I can see everything. And so it's all depending on what I want to do with it. If I want to save these steps as a flow in a file, if I want to add a description here, I can. So I could document it by simply copying and pasting by adding a description. So there's a lot of different ways to take care of that.
And then I'm not sure, do you know if, Tableau has introduced a lot of tools, and because they along with tools like Power BI were lagging in areas that Cognizant is very strong in terms of lineage and governance. So that's been a big push for companies like Tableau. And so they've introduced Tableau Catalog, which is kind of lineage functionality. And I'm not sure, maybe you are, Patrick, but what the hooks are in between that. Like if you publish a flow, does that provide a rich set of information to catalog, or?
I don't know. I don't have any.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. So I would expect those hooks, if they don't exist already, to be better, but you get better visualization or insight into where did that data come from, and of course you can certify data sets and stuff like that. So those are things that Tableau's added in there that are nice, so you don't kind of have the wild, wild west of everybody publishing random data sets out there on Tableau's server. And then there's Tableau Explain, which will actually go in and add some kind of English descriptions of what you're looking at in your visualizations. And so I think having some of that metadata helps with that. So let's see, just kind of scrolling through. Oh, Patrick, you got some fans on there saying hi. I think those are all the questions that we had for today. So unless anything pops online here, first of all, I want to send a sincere thank you to our presenter, Patrick, today, who picked up the ball and ran with the prep demonstration today. It was certainly very informative and interesting. I want to thank all of you for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you soon on another one of our Knowledge Series events. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your day. Bye now.